Great. So thank you everyone to be here with me, and thank you to the opportunity to speak on your user group meeting. We will talk about some new functions and syntaxes tips and tricks. Actually, we have a lot of new functions and mostly of them from SQL 2022 right now. And who I am, so I was for many years developer and mostly programming in C#, but then I oriented myself to SQL Server, and with more than 18 years of my professional experience, I oriented myself in development and optimization. I'm working for a creation company called Span, and we are widely present. So we have also office in the USA and etc. We are working for large customers, and our solutions are used on every continent on the world. I am leading the creation SQL Server user group. Also, I have meetings 1 per month, and 5 years ago I started to organize SQL Saturday in Croatia. So this summer we will have the 5th event. So maybe if you are passing by, come, and it will be fun, of course. I have a small blog about SQL Server, and I am awarded with the MVP status for my contribution to the community. Here are the slides and demos from this presentation, and they will be on this URL for future few weeks, so you can download them. After I will remove the URL, so maybe if you organizers can have some space to put it and for later consuming, feel free to give it. I would like first to pass all slides, and then I will jump to Management Studio with demos, of course. And as I realized, now you have a lunch break or something, so maybe it's better to have questions at the end of the presentation. So let's try this way. Okay, SQL Server 2090 changed the way if you to announce the error message, which is always very frustrating and was almost impossible to detect. For example, when you insert a statement or a record and you have some overflow in the data, so your string actually, if your string is larger than the table, the column where you want to store the value. So in 2019, the Microsoft team changed the error message. So now you have basic parameters for the error. You know exactly the database, the table, and also the column name, and finally the value or part of the value that was the cause of the error. So one thing to keep in mind is that the error code changed from 8,152 to 2,628. And for example, if you in your code refer to an older error message, you can turn off the feature by using the alter database scope configuration set. One more thing actually cool in SQL Server 2019 is this one. So the support for UTF-8. So before SQL Server 2019, storing some characters, for example, ASCII, in SQL Server was really limited. SQL Server supports Unicode characters in the form of nchar, nvarchar, and ntext data types that are actually using UTF-16 encoding. The penalty of this was that you need to pay the price for more storage and memory because you had to store all the data in the Unicode UTF-16 even when you need only ASCII characters. UTF-8 is, of course, the dominant character encoding system for the World Wide Web, and it is used in over 90% of all web pages. UTF-8 database support allows us application internationalization without converting old strings to Unicode. UTF-8 support in SQL Server 2019 is implemented as new collations, and you have in total 1,553 new collations you can choose for your database, and you can identify them because they finish with the UTF-8 suffix. So, for example, this is an example of Ukrainian translation for the phrase SQL Server 2019 supports UTF-8 collation. And of course, if Google Translate does not lie to us, it should be sounds like visible here on the screen. So on the left side, you have the non-UTF-8 database. And notice that the result for the query is only okay when we use the nvarchar data type. So in the char, we are losing some characters. On the right side, you have the UTF-8 database, and the result is now correct if we are using varchar and even nvarchar like before. Also look at the column data length value. So you can notice that there is a slightly improvement in the consumption of space needed for storing Cyrillic characters using UTF-8 encoding. It's not maybe much, but you know, of course, that the storage is the most bad performing component of your system. So it's better to consume less storage, of course, for storing data. And the last thing we will see from old versions of SQL Server is this, so compress and decompress. So SQL Server compress and decompress are introduced from SQL Server 2016. And as you know, SQL Server already supports row and page compression of data, and compress function isn't the replacement for them. The function actually returns the data type of var binary max that represents the compressed content of the input. The function uses a gzip algorithm for data compression, and compressed data cannot be indexed. It is actually recommended to use it on rarely used data, maybe some log data or XML, because the data is not simple readable or usable if first not decompressed. On short text values, the compressed data could use more space than the original data. This is, of course, a normal behavior, like the file compression of really small files. Decompress should be exactly the opposite of the compress mechanism, or maybe not. The problem here is that the function actually returns the data type of var binary max. And if you like to get the original value, you must cast it to the original data type. So you are using actually CPU for casting and CPU for decompressing. And we have a fun example about this. String split is actually a table values function introduced first in SQL Server 2016 for splitting string values by a separator. It has, of course, multiple usages. You can use it maybe in some input parameters for store procedures or other examples. The function returns a single column table with parts or fragments. The name of the column is value, and return type depends of any of the input arguments. The table value function can be used not only in the select statement, but also in the where or from statements, for example, by using join or cross apply. There are many theories and approaches and solutions to split strings in SQL Server before the existence of string split function. And the good one was by using XML. So you can also find cool articles that actually compare various methods of splitting string. In SQL Server 2022, string split was enhanced, and it has this optional parameter enable ordinal, and it is the int or bit expression that serves as flag to enable or disable the ordinal output column. A value of 1 enables the ordinal numbers. String split is unfortunately still limited by a single character delimiter, so it could be actually cool to use more than one character as the delimiter, but we have this limitation right now. If enable ordinal is omitted, null, or has a value of 0, the ordinal column is disabled. Just the opposite of string split is string aggregate. It was actually introduced in SQL Server 2017, and it was not upgraded till today. And also you can actually test it, how it is performing compared to other solutions before this function. And I actually think that it's working pretty well. Date bucket, it is the SQL Server 2022 new feature, new function. And the function actually collapses date time to fixed interval, eliminating the need to round date time values, extract date parts, and perform wild conversions to any from other types like float or make elaborate and intuitive date add, date diff calculations, sometimes using magic dates from the past, and etc. The output is a date time type based on the input. Generate series, it's also a SQL Server 2022 new function. This function produces a set-based sequence of numeric values. It replaces numerous tables, recursive CTAs, and other on-the-fly sequence generation techniques we all used at one point or another. The output is the same type as start and stop. The step is optional. The default is 1, but you can also use negative values for the step and also decimal steps. So it's really cool. You will get numbers, a series of numbers really fast. Window function. I suggest you, if you are not using window functions, that actually you buy a book from Itzik Ben-Gan. So Itzik is a real cool guy, and I think that he's the best actually guy you can learn window functions. And about window functions, I have a new thing in SQL Server 2022 that's actually cool. And it's actually the new window clause that is between having and order by. And this clause allows you to shorten your code by avoiding the repetition of identical parts of your window specifications. The window clause is located between having and order by, as told before. I will show you an example later in the demo what's about that. First value and last value are also new functions from SQL 2022, and they actually return the first or last value in an ordered set of values. The scalar expression is the value to be returned, and the partition by clause divides the result set produced by the from clause into partitions to which the functions is applied. Later in the demo, it will be easier to understand. So trim, L-trim, R-trim. Actually, L-trim and R-trim were introduced earlier in the world of SQL Server. Trim was introduced in SQL Server 2017, and all three functions are enhanced in SQL Server 2022. So actually L-trim and R-trim has these optional parameter characters, and you can actually specify which characters to be replaced from the beginning or from the left side or the end or right side of the string. So previously L-trim and R-trim removed only spaces at the beginning and the end of the string. And trim actually has this new feature called new parameter leading and trailing, or both, that you can define if you want to remove characters at the beginning, the end, and on the both sides of the string value. We will see in the demo. The distinct predicate is also SQL Server 2022 feature, and actually it's really cool if you want to compare something with null. Maybe you know, I'm sure that you actually know, that comparing with null is not possible in SQL Server. So the distinct predicate, or is not distinct, enables us to get data by comparing with null, and also it's better performing than other solutions, and we will show on the demo how it's performing. Greatest and least are new functions introduced in SQL Server 2022, and actually return the biggest or smallest number of ordered set of values. This expression 1 to expression end, but also the functions will make casting, and for example you can use numbers and strings in numbers in strings to compare to find the largest or smallest value, and practically if casting is possible, you will get a good result for that. And also, if one or more arguments are not null, then the null argument will be also ignored during comparison. And if all arguments are null, then the function will return null. Okay. If you are maybe using percentile functions in your day-to-day work, now from SQL Server 2022, you have the approximate percentile functions. And the benefit is that if you are okay with performance versus accuracy trade-off, the new functions are faster and have a smaller memory footprint than the older ones. Another benefit is that these functions are implemented as grouped ordered set functions, and they are actually performing very, very well. So maybe for some previews or some insights in your data, if you are using the original functions, maybe you should think about using these approximation functions. JSON was actually introduced in SQL from 2016. You had 4 functions: is JSON, JSON value, JSON query, and JSON modify, and 2 operators for JSON and OpenJSON. So the functions were for to validate, query, and modify JSON documents. For JSON was to transform SQL data into JSON string, and OpenJSON was to transform JSON string into a relational dataset. And now in SQL Server 2022, we have some enhancements and new functions. The first one is JSON that actually tests for a string if containing scalar, object, or array. JSON path exists. It tests for the existence of a specified SQL JSON path expression in a JSON document. And JSON object allows you to construct a JSON object from SQL data, while JSON array allows you to construct JSON array from SQL data. I actually have the whole presentation about JSON in SQL of more than 1 hour, so maybe next time we will talk about that. And the last new function introduced in SQL Server 2022 is date trunc. And this function returns an input date truncated to specified date part. Okay, we are finished with theory. Now let's close this and let's go to the demo. Let's check maybe if something. Okay, chat is okay. So compress and decompress. I have here a big string, and I will actually compress it. I get var binary data from it. So actually, let's test how efficient is this. So notice here actually that I have a compression rate of 62%, and this is pretty good. But for example, if I'm trying to compress a small string like this here on the screen, I have a minus compression rate. So actually the compressed value is larger than the starting value. I have some here demo tables. Let's try to change the database first. And let's see here data. So I have actually order lines. I have a copy of this table with only one part of them. And I have also a table that actually has compressed value of these values here. I want to show you how much storage is used here. So the original uncompressed value size of the data is 43 megabytes. You can see it here. So these are the row and the page compression are using around 22 megabytes. and this is okay because we have a compression rate about 50%. And by using this compress function, we have 32 megabytes. It's actually smaller than before, but it's not so efficient like these two examples here. And also it is not performing very well like before. I have another example here. I am, sorry. I will have here two tables. One is with XML data and one is with compressed XML values. I think this will finish in 5 to 10 seconds. So I can show you this demo. Yes, we are good. So in the first table, I have normal XML data. In the second one, I have this XML data compressed. And now if we check the space used, you will see that the compressed XML is half of a size. So it's pretty okay, this for storing. But we will look this also later. And I want to show you this, the decompress. So I have here one string, Damir likes, okay, and I'm actually compressing and decompressing the value. If I am doing just that, I will get something that's impossible to read because the result of the decompress function is var binary max. So to be able to read the decompressed data, I must also cast the compressed value to some data type. So this actually is now readable. So I was starting with nvarchar max and I finished with nvarchar max, and now the result is readable. But it's really important that you actually know your data. So this is one example. I, for example, compressed some data, and then another developer come and try to decompress this data. But here we have a small problem. So I started with nvarchar max, and the developer was assuming that I was using varchar data type. And if you run this, you will get only this. So actually it's not good because we didn't came from where we started. And we have another example. So I started with varchar, but I was trying to get nvarchar of the decompressed data. And this is even more funny. I have here something that actually looks like Chinese, but it's not Chinese. And let's see about performance of the XML. We already know that that the compressed XML data was half of the starting size. I will turn on statistics. I have turned on the execution plan, and I will run these two queries together. So first, let's look at the execution plan, and you will see that SQL Server actually thinks that the second part of the query is more efficient because in the whole batch, the first part of the query was using 66%, and the second one was using only 34%. So if we look here, we will see that the second one is what? The decompress one. So first example was only select star from table. Okay, The second one was select star from the table, but I needed to decompress the data. And SQL Server tells us the second one is more efficient. But it's not really, because if you look at the messages, you will actually see that the first example was using 62 milliseconds of CPU, and the second one was using almost 3 times more milliseconds of CPU time. And so the first one was really better performing. But why we have these numbers here? The numbers here are because of these logical reads. So SQL Server was reading less disk from disk in the second example, and so SQL Server thinks, okay, this second one is more efficient, but really isn't, because it was taken almost 3 times more time. Okay, let's see the string split. So you actually know the string split, what's the purpose of this. So I have some ingredients here, I have a delimiter, and I want actually to get every ingredient in one row. And this is the point of the string split. The string split has the problem that you actually cannot use more than one character, and this is really not nice. And I hope that in the future, maybe next version of SQL Server or some CU will bring us the possibility to split strings by using more than one character. Okay. You can use it in various ways, for example, like input parameter of store procedure or something, but I want you to show actually the efficiency of the string split. So I created a function that's using XML to split strings, and before the split string, I think that this was the most common used method to split strings. Now I will run a test. So this is my demo function with the splitting string on the old way. I will turn on some statistics, and I will run both queries together. So first I will use the XML method, and the second one I will use the split string function. Maybe I should use the correct database for this. Yes, it sometimes helps us. So now maybe I created a function in the wrong database. Okay, not worry, and let's run it finally. So the result is the same of these two functions. If you look at the execution plan, you will see that the old method by using XML was using 64% of the whole batch, and the second one, the new function, only 36% of the whole batch. And if you look at the statistics, so it's actually really fast. So the CPU time is almost 0. Okay, it's small data type, but notice here that the old functions was using some temp table, temporary object with 227 logical reads, while the new functions was using only 16 logical reads. Okay. The new thing in SQL Server 2022 is actually then you have this optional parameter to enable ordinal numbers. So now you get this ordinal number, and you can select only the second item from the list. And how it's compared with old function also. So if we compare it with the old approach of splitting string, you will see also that the old one with XML was using 65%, the new one 35%. And if you look at the messages, you will notice also that you here have the temporary object, and in the new functions, you don't have any temporary object. String aggregate is it's not enhanced in SQL Server 2022. If you are not using it, I would just want a quick show you quickly how it's performing compared to the old way. The old way was with XML and stuff, and this is a really good. This was a really good method to aggregate strings before this new function. And now the second example is by string aggregate. If you look at the execution plan, you will see that the old approach was using almost 100% of the whole batch. And if you look at the messages, you will see that the old function was using 62 milliseconds of CPU time, the new one only 16. You had here a lot really of logical reads in the old method, and in the new one, less logical reads. So think about it actually to use these new cool functions that you have in your environments if you are able, but please test it, because sometimes you can also have a downgrade of some performance, but usually they are better performing. The bucket SQL Server 2022. So let's see. You have, I want actually to get the month only, the first day of the month. So this is the old way to accomplish this task by date add, date diff, and blah, blah, blah. So it's, the code is a little bit complicated, and with date bucket, it's really easier to get the same result. We can use, of course, date bucket for this example. So I want to get a number of work cases per month, and these are the old one and the new one approach. So the new one is with date bucket, and the old one is with date from part, year, month, and so etc. So the code is really more readable now. And we can also use it for other things. For example, number of deliveries per hour. So this is also possible by using date bucket. So it's not only required to have a month, you can use day, hour, minute, and etc. And the code is really intuitive and more readable than before. Generate series is to generate numbers. And let's see some solutions, how they were working before the generate series. So we could use CTA, for example, and I want to get numbers for 1 to 100. But if I wanted to get numbers from 1,000 to 1 million, I had problems because CTA was limited to only 100 recursions. So I get the error. So I was trying maybe to find some large objects in my database, like sys columns, sys objects, sys tables, etc. And I want to get a subset. I want to get numbers from 1,000 to 1 sorry, to 1 million. And I was using this really big objects in my database, but if you look at the messages, you will see that this was lasting for almost half of the second of my CPU time, and I have insane larger number of logical reads. So it's not good. Another approach is to use this number range. It's a helper function that I was using. And now I'm selecting some numbers. If you look at the messages, you will see that I was using almost 260 milliseconds. Another approach is to use this some number table, of course, but take care about that maybe sometimes you don't have a right to write or create new objects in your database. And also, if you look at the performance, you will see that actually I had some more than 1,500 logical reads, and I was using 60 milliseconds of CPU time. And now finally, let's see how the new function is performing. So if we look at the messages, you will see actually that we used only 15 milliseconds and we don't have any logical read. But we can use it, of course, to get only even numbers. We can use it to without the step. And the default step is 1, of course, if the step is not specified. And another thing, if you look at the execution plan, you will notice here that SQL Server is aware of your step and it will not use the sort parameter if, for example, you are getting numbers from 1 to 100. So it's already ascending, and there is no need actually to use the sort operator if you are ordering it. But for example, if you are generate numbers by descending, ascending, and ordering by descending, then the SQL Server will put the sort operator. And another thing, you can use it to get decimal, even numbers, and also negative numbers. And one example is if you are using it together with date bucket, you can get easily total cells per day. So this big part of the code here is without date bucket example, and this one is with date bucket, and this generate series. So let's run it together, and you will see actually that the first one was here. We have some about index index missing, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at the messages, you will notice that the first part of the query was using a lot of CPU compared to the second one that was using almost no CPU. Okay, the Windows clause is this. So if you are familiar and you use the window function, you will notice here and see that actually sometimes it's hard to read these window functions because you have here partition by something 5 times. And then we have order by addition, and also we have this addition of rows unbounded proceedings. So it's almost that the same code is used many times. So right now we have this window statement here, and we can actually shorten the text by telling what is the window definition. So P is partition by customer ID, and then we can use it in our queries. So here minimum order date over P as blah, 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 column name. So then we can also extend it by saying PO is P ordered by something. And then we can still extend it and set PO is PO, this one, between rows unbound proceeding. And if we run this query, we will get, of course, the same result as before, but the performance is totally the same, but this code is more readable than this one, and it's shorter, of course. First value, last value. Okay, let's try to retrieve employees by department, pay grade when they are hired, the minimum, the last date of employment in the department. So this here is code before usages of first value, last value, and this smaller code, of course, is by using first value, last value. Okay, I clicked something wrong. If we run these both queries together, you will see that the result is the same. But if you look at the execution plan, you will see that the first one was using 58%, the second one 42%. And if you look at the messages, you will notice that the first one was 60 milliseconds and the second one was 0 milliseconds. So it's really better performing this. And also one more example is this employee with fewer vacations within one department. So it's also really readable and nice to use these new functions. Trim, so actually only the first statement was previously only supported, and all other one are enhanced in SQL Server 2022. So you can actually use this trim with leading, trailing, or both if you want to remove this value from both or left or right side of the string. And also you can use L trim and R trim to remove special string value. Is not distinct is a really great feature, and you can use it for if you are dealing with comparing with null value. And okay, let's create some. Okay. So I have sales order, of course, and I want to get orders picked on a date. So how can we get this? We are actually have the column here, picking completed when. So we will, I want to get orders that are picked on some day. So these are all the orders that are actually picked on specified date. But now my boss tell me, please give me all the orders that are waiting to be picked up. And I, of course, specify null, and I want to compare this picking completed when with null. If I run this, I will get no result. I will tell to my boss, hey boss, all the orders are picked up. And he go in the warehouse, turned back to me and said, how can you tell me that all the orders are picked up? I have there 1,000 items not picked up. And then I'm looking at, if I look at my code, I will see, oh, this is a problem because I cannot compare something with null. So before this new method of is not distinct operator, I could write something like this. So I'm using is null, and when comparing with that, I will get these 3,000 rows that records that are not picked up. Now it's forking, of course, but if you look at execution plan, you will notice here that I have an index scan. And what does it mean? Index scan means that the whole table was scanned to get this result. And imagine if, for example, I'm working for Amazon, I could have millions of orders. And if I'm going to scan the whole table with millions of orders, this query could last for a half hour, for example. And this is actually not good. So I will try to change something in my code. So I am rewriting this. I have some combination. I will run this, and still I have a nice looking execution plot, but still I have an index scan, meaning that the whole table was scanned. I have 700 logical reads almost. And now finally, I have SQL 2022, and I am using the is not distinct from. Now I can actually compare with now. And if you look at the execution plan, you will see that I have what? An index seek. And I have, this is really strange, of course. This is not true, I think, because this query is performing much, much better. And I'm not sure why this actually. Greatest and least. So imagine actually that you want to find the greatest number of three values, and you can use this greatest. But what without the function? The first one, what with switch case? Okay, it's it's working, of course, but the code is not small. Okay, so imagine that I have 20 columns. Okay, just take example of 4 columns, and I want to insert some values here, and I want to find the best and the worst month, but only 4, okay? And this is a switch case for only 4 columns. Imagine that I have 24 columns and I want to write a switch case, so the code could be really huge. Another approach was to use unpivot. Okay, it's not so bad, but it's not so intuitive, of course. I could use also cross-apply, and it's also working, but it's also not so intuitive, this code. And now let's see the greatest and least functions. So this code is really readable. And you can also other things compare with greatest and least. So you can compare decimal numbers. You can compare values even if data types are not the same. And we can compare also strings. So actually I get the greatest text of string of these strings. And I could use it, for example, in some comparison for correlations. And we have here the least example that actually returns the smallest value. Okay, approximate percentile functions. I will only run it quickly. And you will see that the result is almost the same. That are actually the approximations. But if you look at the execution plan, you will notice that non-approximate functions are really complex execution plans. And the whole query batch was using 88%, and the second one only 12%, and it's much simpler. And another thing, yes, I did take the last one from Bob Ward. Thank you. And if you look at the logical reads, you will see that approximation function had a lot of logical reads, and the second one not so many. JSON enhancements are the following. So actually, you know that each JSON was actually testing if a string is a JSON value. Okay. Also this is a valid JSON, and this one. Okay. And now what you have actually. So now you have this additional parameter that can be value, object, scalar, or array. So it actually tests if this string is a valid JSON value. So yes, this is a valid JSON value. This is not a valid JSON value. And the third one, yes, it is a valid JSON value. If you specify object for the second parameter, you will see actually if this is a valid JSON object. So yes, this is a valid JSON object. And this is, of course, not a valid JSON object. You can test if something is a valid JSON array. So the first one is not a JSON array, and the second one is. And also you can test if something is a JSON scalar value or not. The new functions is actually to JSON object that you can actually create a JSON object by specified by using this function. So you have the column value, column value, column value, and you will get here the JSON object. By using JSON path exist, you can test if value has some path that you want to check. I will finish really fast, sorry. JSON array is also a new function that you can use to create JSON arrays. And the last example is date trunc. I will really only run this, and you will actually see that the purpose of date trunc is to truncate date time value on desiderate interval. So you can get of one input value date, that's current date time here in Croatia. You can truncate it to year, so the year started on 1st January. The quarter also started on 1st January. This week started on 22. It's actually American week. It's mean that Sunday was that date. And this is the ISO week that actually it's on Monday. And you have here truncation on day, hour, minute, second, millisecond, microseconds, and that's all. Thank you very much. The demo is over. I hope that you enjoyed. And now, if you have some questions, feel free. As I already responded, yes, this demo was from Bob Ward, and actually Bob Ward has a repository on GitHub that with new features of SQL 2022. So feel free also to take these examples.
Wonderful presentation. If there's any questions, please post them in the chat. I don't see any outstanding questions there at this time.
Thank you, Erin. The SQL Server has a compatibility level of 160, yes, and in Azure, yes. you will have this compatibility level on Azure. Yes. Yes, this is already available in Azure, all of these features.
Well, it looks like there's no more questions. Again, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. We will be uploading the recording to our YouTube channel, and the slide deck and demo code is also going to be available. Thank you everyone again for joining the meeting today. We do meet the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of the month. Thank you, Damir. Wonderful presentation, very clear and concise.
Thank you one more time for having me, and hear you maybe in some other part of the year. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day and enjoy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.